you get the first crack at the question. Tim Scott is running for president and has a chance, or Tim Scott is running for president because he wants to be VP or secretary of whatever?
No one runs for president to be VP or something else. They all think at some time along this journey that they'll end up securing the votes. I understand, I work for two men, both at 1%. Rick Santorum finished second place eventually. Mike Huckabee also 1% ended up finishing second too. So the low percentage of votes this man's getting right now does not scare me off at all. He could absolutely catch fire. Any of these people could catch fire. I have a tough time finding what his lane would be when you consider where the Republican electorate is now. But I love Tim Scott. I always have. He was my senator, and he did an outstanding job today. Upbeat, optimistic, talking about the faith in America, the hope for America. His line he uses consistently about going from cotton to Congress in one generation. Talk about how the left has taken us from a culture of greatness to a culture of grievance. He talked about the differences that he has with the left, where he thinks this country, her best days are ahead, and how the left considers us the root of all evil and the cause of the world's problems. He did a good job breaking that down with that uplifting message, but I do think the Republican electorate, a majority of whom feel as though the candidate, the nominee, needs to throw a few more punches, be a little tougher, be a little meaner, and I don't know that Tim Scott has that in him right now.
Stephanie?
Well, I think as a general election candidate, he's something that I think a lot of America yearns for, a little more normal, a little more hopeful. As you said, America's brighter days are ahead of us. But whether or not he can make it out of a Republican primary is the real question, right? And then who else gets in? Is he going to be just one more person on that stage with a very dominant figure?
I want to steal from both of my esteemed panelists here, fellow panelists here.
Is the sincerest form of flattery.
That's right. Imitation is the sincerest form of journalism. Hogan is 100% right that it doesn't matter what your number is now. It matters whether you're any good at this and whether you can grow.
Right.
And we can say definitively that since 2000, never in the Republican side with an open field has the front runner at this point gone on to win. That's just not how it works. President Jeb Bush was not a thing that happened. So that's what I'll steal from Hogan. From the Congresswoman, what I will steal is this. Tim Scott would make a very good general election candidate for Republicans because he answers an important question. Republicans are sick and tired of being called racist. They're tired of being called racist. They feel it. They don't like it. It is bad for them. And here's Tim Scott. A black man, yes, and a black man who talks about race in frank ways. He doesn't shy away from the issue. He talks about the problems. He talks about the history, and he's honest about it. And so he would answer an important question for Republicans.
Kellie Meyer was there for the announcement, North Charleston, South Carolina. Kellie, good afternoon.
Hey there, guys. Well, it was interesting. I know you're talking about what lane he's going to take here, and he really drilled down on his personal story here today. You know, this was his chance for Americans to get to know him, those who may not have heard of South Carolina Senator Tim Scott before. He was able to share a little bit about who he was, and he did that here at his alma mater, Charleston Southern University in North Charleston, where he grew up in a single-family household in poverty, raised by his mother, who joined him here today, who he thanked on stage for helping him get to this moment. It was a really powerful moment there with his family there, his supporters, and those who knew him growing up and have seen this side of him, a side that I haven't really seen from covering him in the Senate for the last 8 of the 10 years that he's been there. This enthusiasm he showed here, how fired up he was. He talked more about his grandfather. Saying that he was forced out of school when he was in 3rd grade and had to start picking cotton. Again, talking about how he himself failed out of school, failed civics, had to take summer school, and then he eventually got a scholarship for football, got into college, and then ended up here at Charleston Southern University. He talked a little bit about, as you said, talking about race. He didn't shy away from that. He touched on that a little bit in his speech this morning. I want to play a little bit of that for you now.
For those of you who wonder if it's possible for a broken kid in a broken home to rise beyond their circumstances, the answer is yes.
And he also said today I'm the living proof that America is the land of opportunity, not a land of oppression. He says this isn't just my story. This is all of our stories, trying to bring everybody into this journey that he is now starting on today. He is one of the most powerful black conservatives in the country. And he also took jabs here today at President Biden. And he also said the left will fear him. Now he's going to hit the campaign trail officially. He's heading to those early voting states, Iowa and New Hampshire, where he just rolled out that $6 million ad buy. He also has a really big war chest that he's going into this race with, $22 million. He has a donor dinner later tonight. He's going to keep that coming in as he hits the road here in the coming days. Leland.
All right. Kellie Meyer on the trail. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.